I was observing what these people were eating in India. This is a modern.
By the way, India is the #1 diabetic population in the world. Southern India, vegetarians, not the northern. The southern.
Exactly.
He answered why.
These are vegetarians, mind you. Who would believe it? Vegetarians getting heart disease and losing limbs. Now, and I'm a vegetarian, right? I'm going to tell you the difference tonight between me and you and them. This is modern India. This is not India of 300 years ago. They cook their food to oblivion in oil, particularly mustard oil. They boil it to oblivion, and that's what they're eating. What do you expect? They're getting, and this was a common thread, and I presented that at the hospital, and they said, you know, you're right. So they're eating rancid oils. What do you expect to happen to their cell membrane? And the nutritional content is destroyed when you cook food at that kind of high temperature. Then one thing leads to another, and I believe it takes somebody like me, because it didn't come to him. I'm saying that in jest. And in our book, The PEO Solution, how many of you heard of the French paradox? Not many of you. I'll tell you what the French paradox is. The French eat an extraordinarily rich diet. A lot of beef, pâté, very rich diet. It's full of saturated fat. And yet their incidence of vascular disease is significantly less than ours. And the idiots out there for years were trying to convince you that saturated fat is the cause of your vascular disease. Now, I never bought into that, because saturated fat is a normal part of diet. But here they're telling us less saturated fat, and they're eating a really rich diet in saturated fat. They don't have heart disease. Oh, it must be red wine. The resveratrol in red wine. That's what it is. Well, you would have to drink several gallons a day of red wine to get the amount of resveratrol that would give you some protection. And I think if you did that, you'd be dead. You'd have wiped out your heart from that, because alcohol is toxic to the heart besides your brain, your liver, and everything else. So it can't be that. What it came to was it took somebody like me and the way I eat, because I think I'm the first person, and you're going to hear it publicly now for the first time, to resolve the French paradox. The French, remember I told you, I'm an organic, to the extent that I can be, raw food, near vegan. Do you all understand that? I eat a salad each night that will fit in here twice. That's what, and you saw me eat today, all right? We found a place here that actually could cater to me, thank the Lord. I was worried. So my wife and I eat this way. I'll give you some statistics in a moment. But the French do cook their food, but what do they cook it in? Butter. They cook it in butter. They don't cook it in vegetable oil. And butter is saturated, but it's shorter chain, it's medium chain triglyceride, and it has a low browning point. And the French are culinary artists, and they don't want to burn their butter and destroy their food, so they're cooking it at low temperature. Voila! They're not getting oxidized oil in their diet because they're using saturated fat in the form of butter, and they're cooking it at lower temperature where it oxidizes less and it destroys the nutritional content of the food less. Does everybody get that? So if you're going to cook food in oil, please, there's only two, and it's not olive oil. Butter or coconut oil or possibly palm oil, because palm oil and coconut oil are medium chain triglycerides. You can't heat them up too much, and they're much more stable. Don't even cook in olive oil. Olive oil is fine. If you want olive oil, put it in your salad dressing. I don't even use oil in my salad dressing. I mash an avocado. I put a hint of sesame oil on it, maybe a little hint of olive oil in it, just because it does have nutritional value. That's my oil base. I use raw coconut vinegar, garlic powder, sea salt, a couple other things. We're going to have that recipe up there. It's a salad dressing you will die for. It's so delicious.
What's the top temperature for butter?
Probably 150 degrees centigrade. 100 degrees centigrade is boiling point. So the top temperature for butter is about 150. If you go higher than that, you're going to brown it. And I strongly believe, there you have the resolution to the French paradox. You go to India, they're boiling everything to oblivion in a very vulnerable oil, mustard oil. Just a moment. I want to share one other thing with you, and then I'll be happy to take your questions. I told you I don't believe that God makes mistakes. I believe that God designed our bodies to be self-healing wonders of nature, including animals too. But I think ours are even more wondrous, because if you fed an animal, they've done this on laboratory animals, if you fed an animal the type of diet that the average American is eating, they're history. Somehow we make it to 70, yes, with degenerative disease, with cancer, with heart disease and everything else. But we do survive. The animal won't even survive eating this trash. I believe there's 3 fundamental causes of disease: improper nutrition, toxins, and stress. Those are the 3 fundamental causes. If you address them, which government will never address because you don't make money on this, and government's controlled by money interests, if you address these 3, you can resolve just about everything. And if you can't resolve it, you can make it dramatically better. Yes, there are other things. I agree. There's injuries. Well, those are physical injuries. That's anatomy. Go to the hospital. I would. I broke my hand. I went to the hospital. There's genetics. But that's largely BS, because there's a new science called epigenetics. Do you all have a computer, right? It has a hard drive. You're at a keyboard. Who controls that hard drive? You do, at the keyboard, right? You're in control of it. The hard drive is the DNA. What you do to your DNA with the toxins and poisons and stress and everything else, that alters the expression of the DNA, and it corrupts the files. This is called epigenetics. So genetics are a portion of this, but you are more in control, believe it or not, than what your mother and father gave you. Although I'm going to tell you that what your mother and father gave you is really important, because epigenetics transcends generations. The Bible says, "Ye shall pay for the sins of your fathers even unto the 4th generation." I got chills when I went to a meeting in 1988 or 1989, and there was an article actually published in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, that showed that if you make an animal deficient in zinc, the mineral zinc, its offspring will have an immune deficiency which will be transmitted to its offspring for 4 generations, even if you give it zinc back. And now we can see the same thing with all the chemicals that are in the environment, everything Monsanto's giving us. Pardon me, if you're farmers, I apologize, but I'm going to speak the truth. Chemicals in the environment and nutrition. It's being transmitted to our children, and we're seeing autism and immune dysfunction. And God knows, I don't even think God knows what's going to happen to us because of what we are choosing to do.
We're going to have a break in about 2 minutes, so I'll have to cut you off real quick.
Anybody? Yet? Anybody?
You're not going to win.
You had a question, so you're going to be first.
We're going to have questions after the break. But there's 2 things regarding nutrition. Parent essential oils are the number 1 thing. It's not vitamins. Parent essential oils. The second thing is there's a deficiency of minerals. Minerals are coenzymes, just like vitamins, so they can make reactions go up to 1 million times faster. I look at what are we eating and why is there a deficiency and why may you need a supplement. Well, with the PEOs, adulteration of the oils to get long shelf life. Makes sense. Minerals are not in the soil anymore. because the fertilizer they use isn't organic, so it's not cow manure that nature designed to have the waste of those animals put into the soil that puts it into the plant that we can eat. So there is a big mineral deficiency. The next one, for toxins, the best thing I've ever seen is a formulation called SEAC. It's non-irritating, non-stimulating. It comes from the Ojibwa Indians. Been around for over 100 years. I like a formulation that has cat's claw added to it. It's the best upper respiratory enhancer in the world. So this is the best blood purifier and natural chelator, helping to remove all the toxins I've ever seen. If you ever feel a cold coming on or anything, you take half a bottle of this stuff, the cold is gone. It is unbelievable. Asthma, unbelievable. Stress, again, the oils make your hormones. So we should be able to have huge stress. Look at the stress in the 1800s. You got the flu, you're probably dead. You got shot, what kind of surgery they have? No anesthetic. You died of all kinds of things, and it was hazardous. You went across the country, there were no supermarkets. You got caught in a snowstorm, dead. So the stress back then was infinite. I'll give you today, there's more perceived stress. But these oils, again, are the endocrine system. So this is talked about in the book, too. It's really, really interesting. Please take some time, look at the book. You could also go on the internet, PEO-solution.com. It will give a lot of the accolades about it, but you can look at it out there. And take about 15 minutes to peruse this. Also a 24-hour diet, if anybody was wondering about that. It was out of print for 3 years. It's back because I had so many people wanting it. It's updated to be completely consistent with PEO Solution. So please check outside in 15 minutes. And if you have a question, I guarantee other people will want to hear the answer. So save it for a couple of minutes, and we'll see you in 15 minutes.
Before you go, I'm going to give you some numbers to think about with me. Remember, I'm a vegetarian, and he didn't think it was possible to be healthy until he met me.
No, I never saw one. The ones I saw were very sickly.
All right.
Didn't look good, no energy. I mean, not good.
Big
difference.
My blood pressure on a bad day is 90/60. On an average day, it's about 85/55. I've been as low as 74/47, just to let you know. And I'm standing here in front of you. That's the blood pressure of a young adolescent. Is it low adrenals? No. I hiked the John Muir Trail a few years ago. It's the longest, roughest, toughest, highest altitude trek in North America, save Alaska. 200 miles, average elevation 10,000 feet. As an organic, raw food vegetarian. You're worried about hormones? My testosterone runs between 550 and over 800. I don't take any hormones. PSA, how many men are worried about prostate problems? I used to say, don't get a PSA. There's reasons for that, but I finally broke down because it's an indicator of inflammation in the prostate. So I decided to get one a few years ago, and it was 0.4. My wife said, get another one. Let's see, maybe it was a fluke. Maybe it was a fluke test. I got another one a couple months ago. It went up, 0.5.
And by the way, that is within the same margin of error.
Yeah.
It's statistically, it's the same number.
I did the same test he recommended, a digital pulse analysis. My arteries are about 20 years younger than my chronological age. I've had tests that show absolutely zero plaque in my blood vessels. I dance circles around my colleagues, my age, on the trail. And I can give you number after number of my essential fatty acids. I don't take any supplements. Well, I do take a few supplements, but I don't, I'll be honest with you. You know, we're here to talk about this. But you don't eat my diet. If you ate the way I eat, you probably wouldn't need to do this. And I think you would admit it too. My essential fatty acid profile is perfect. And my minerals are spot on, but my zinc is borderline. Why? Because even though I eat organic, our soils are getting deficient and deficient. So I agree with the professor. The main deficiencies right now in the American are essential fatty acids and minerals. You're all deficient in minerals, guaranteed. And I'm okay because of the way I eat, but I'm borderline in zinc. So I'm telling you, you can eat this way and be healthy if you do it right. But since so few people are willing to do it right, I do use a lot of supplements, and my patients do get essential fatty acids, but they don't get marine oil. Thanks. Let's take a break. Up and claim my $100 because you can't. There is no synthetic petrochemical drug that cures a disease. Even antibiotics, if you don't have an immune system, antibiotics aren't going to cure you. You still need to have an immune system. And I've asked doctors about this, and no one has claimed the $100. You've got to get your body back to the way God designed it, to heal. It needs raw materials. Your car, you take better care of your car than you do your body. You change your oil every 3,000 miles, don't you? You make sure there's 28 or 30 pounds of air pressure in your tires. You use the right octane of gas. Well, what kind of octane of food are you putting in your body? Trash. Mineral deficient. If you don't have the gap in your spark plug right, you can't make energy in that cylinder. You take better care of your automobiles than you do your own body. So my philosophy is get into the body, the raw materials it needs to heal, and get out of it the toxins and poisons that are screwing it up. And do your best to lower your stress. I'm not the best to deal with my patients with stress, but I direct them. I deal mostly with toxins and nutrition, and I deal with oxidation. Somebody asked me, are you going to talk about ozone? Do any of you want to hear about that? Yes. Do any of you not want to hear about it? All right. You might as well, he wants it short because
There's a lot of questions.
You can do ozone in the privacy of your home. There is a company that sells ozone water purifiers, and I tell my patients to get it because I'd rather them do it at home than come to me. I do it in their blood. It works a lot better and faster. The one gift that Castro gave to the world was he funded the Cuban World Research Ozone Center. I might not have the name right, but that was in 1986. The Cubans have done phenomenal research in ozone, as have the Italians and the Germans. Ozone therapy, the way I do it, is either giving it rectally or, to work much better, we give it in the blood, or if you have degenerative joint disease and you walk into my office like this, holding onto the wall. This is videos of patients on my YouTube channel. You'll see it before and after. You put it in the joint. What does the body need to heal more than anything else? What single thing does the body need to heal? Thank you. Oxygen. That's it. Oxygen. You get oxygen in and you get oxygen to burn and you make energy for healing. Ozone is O3. Ozone is gas. Ozone is O3.
How do you put that in your vein?
You take some blood out. The way I do it generally is I take some blood out. I put ozone oxygen gas mixture in it, mix it up, give it back to the patient. Another way you can do it is actually put the gas right into a joint or a body cavity. Another way is putting it in rectally. I've had patients blow it in their ears. You're not putting gas in your bloodstream. You take the blood out and you mix it up with the gas. The gas reacts with the blood, and now you're putting the blood back in, the treated blood. And that stimulates. You could go online, for those of you who are technically inclined, and get a book, if you're technically inclined, by Vilio Bocci, B-O-C-C-I, from Amazon, and he's written a treatise on what ozone does to your blood physiology. It stimulates oxygen delivery. It lubricates blood cells so that it gets better what we call rheologic properties. That's flow properties of blood. It modulates the immune system so that if your immune system is weak like this, it comes back like that. If it's like this, it goes like this. What do pharma drugs do? Well, if you're out of balance like this, drugs, chemical drugs, bring you down like this. So you're in balance. Maybe your pain goes away, but you're operating here. Hey, people, I want you up here. I will challenge any one of you up to 15 years younger than me, even 20 years younger than me, to a hike in the High Sierra to keep up with me. I don't see any takers. And if you beat me, I'll pay your trip.
Now, what do you attribute that to?
My diet.
You the vegetarian thing? Or?
I'm an organic raw food vegetarian. I attribute my health more to diet than anything else. I also have done chelation therapy to remove heavy metals, and I have the lowest heavy metals of almost anybody I know. I eat a very good diet. I get some exercise. I am not an exercise buff, but I walk up a hill, a 1,200-foot hill, about once a week, and it's a 7-mile round trip. And I do that whole thing. I get up the hill. It's 1,200 feet up, and I time myself. That's how I know how I'm doing. It's 3.5 miles one way, 1,200 feet up, and I can get up there in as low as 55 minutes carrying 10 pounds of dumbbells on my back.
Are you a vegetarian because that's what you want to be, or are you not in favor of eating meat?
It's an excellent question. The question for the camera is, am I a vegetarian for health reasons or I don't want to eat meat? Both. Vegetarians typically are healthier. California Seventh-day Adventists live longer than even fish-eating Adventists. The longest-lived societies on the planet, of the 5, 4 are mostly vegetarian. Only one, the Okinawans, do eat meat or fish. I'm a vegetarian largely for spiritual reasons, because I don't want to kill an animal. That's me. There's no judgment here, and I don't judge anybody who wants to eat meat. If you want to eat meat, please do it. Just make sure it's fed naturally, it's organic, and it's humanely killed. But I'm a vegetarian for spiritual reasons. When I left Alaska, when I married my wife and I came to California in the year 2000, I had already made up my mind to stop eating fish because I was leaving Alaska, home of salmon. I went out and got salmon. I admit it. I loved it. I made lox. I made smoked salmon. I ate a fair amount of salmon, not a lot, perhaps twice a week I ate salmon, but I wasn't eating meat and I wasn't eating chicken. After I came to California, I said I'm going to stop killing fish, and I also gave up eggs.
A high-performing athlete's got to have a lot of carbohydrates.
Guess what? High-performing athletes eat like me. Doug Graham. Doug Graham wrote a piece in our book, The PEO Solution. He's a chiropractor and a nutritionist to NBA professional athletes. He moves them to more raw foods. And as they do, their aging process reverses and they can perform better on the court.
Everybody's been misled on overdosing on carbs, by the way. Not the way to go.
Once again, let me elaborate on this for you. Let's go back in human history 1,000 years.
Well, tell them what you don't eat. There's one thing, being a raw foods vegan, compared to the average vegetarian, he doesn't eat.
I'm going to explain a couple things. You don't have to eat like me. I'm not asking you to. You don't have to, and please don't. Because I love what I eat. I thrive on it. When I was on the mountain in the high Sierra, I was craving a salad. That's all I could think about. On the mountain was coming down and getting a salad because I couldn't carry it. It was too heavy. But I was still eating raw. I was eating sprouted nuts that had been dehydrated because I needed dense calories for this trip. Now, I ask my patients, eat like me, please, about 70%. So let's talk about the Paleolithic diet for a moment. Let's go back in human history a couple thousand years. What were people eating? I'm not arguing that human beings are eating animal protein. I'm not going to argue with that. There were societies that were always vegetarian. India, for example, has been largely vegetarian, and there were others as well. But let's say we were eating meat, and we were probably eating meat even before we were cooking it over fire. But let's look at logic for a moment. Let's look at our 3 closest relatives in nature, the chimp, the bonobo, and the gorilla. What are they eating? They're vegetarian. In fact, they're vegan. Do you see any of them cooking their food? Even a lion, a carnivore. I've never seen him get an antelope and cook it over a fire. I haven't seen it. He's eating it raw. And what does he eat first? The guts. He eats the flesh last. We stupid people are eating the flesh first, the hardest part of the animal to digest, the muscle. It's the hardest to digest, and we're cooking it. So we're not doing what nature is suggesting. The chimp, the bonobo, and the gorilla, they're eating their food raw. I don't see them cooking it. We do. So that's something to think about. Now, I tell my patients, please eat like me about 70% of the time. I don't care what you do with the remaining 30%. Eat like him. I respect him. All right, be a carnivore if you want. Cook it. Just don't overcook it. Don't eat fried food, fast food, refined food, or processed food. That's all I ask. What you do with that remaining 30%, eat cooked food. That's fine. Eat meat. That's fine. No grains. Because the grains, you're processing them. I ask them to limit beans and legumes, but I don't proscribe that. But 25+% of the American population has a gluten problem. And you're going to find that in the gluten grains. And the wheat we have today is different than it was 300 years ago. It's been hybridized to make a lot more gluten, and it's destroying a lot of people. So I ask my patients, eliminate grains. Dairy can be a problem for some people, and a lot of people do well. I happen to like unpasteurized dairy, if you're going to eat it. And I tolerate dairy. A lot of people don't. I don't really push dairy. But I tell people, no fast, fried, refined, or processed foods. End of story. So I concentrate on diet, I concentrate on detoxification, and then I target therapies and supplements as I see the need for a particular case. I see a lot of pain. I don't believe that there's pain in the world that is a deficiency of a chemical. Pain is a friend. How many of you have pain? I'm sorry to hear that. But please, God designed you to have pain to tell you there's something wrong. And if you mask it with a chemical, the problem is still there. When you have leprosy and your nerves are knocked out by the leprosy and you can't feel anything, you mutilate yourself because you can't feel it. Pain is your friend. Let's address the cause. The first thing I do when somebody comes to see me for pain is I say, tell me about your teeth. Surprised? How many of you have gotten the newsletter I wrote, Second Opinion? I know there's a couple of you. Wow, okay. Those of you who do know that I look at teeth, I look for root canals. How many of you have root canals? Lots of you. Okay. Well, a root canal is a dead tooth, right? Does your body like something dead to remain in its body? If I tied off the artery to one of your gonads and it died, would you want that dead organ to remain in your body? It's dead. It putrefies. It rots. Well, that's what's happening to a tooth. It's an organ. It's got a structure. It's got proteins in it that waste away to horrible toxins. And each tooth is in an acupuncture meridian that can destroy areas in your body along the path of that meridian. I was appointed to a term on the state medical board in Alaska. I defeated the opponents in the legislature because the people rose up in my defense. The reason why I was appointed, one reason, is because a lieutenant governor brought his wife to me who was in horrible pain. They were going to operate on this woman because she could barely walk. They brought her to me to get in a series of injections on her back called prolotherapy, which are really uncomfortable, and I'm good at it, but it's really uncomfortable, and I don't want to give injections to people unless they need it. I'll make a lot of money, but God doesn't want me to do that. I mean, God wants me to make money if I do the ethical thing. That's how I see it. But ethics come first. So the first thing I did is I said, do you have any root canals? She said, yeah. Do you know where they are? No. So I said, well, you just came up from Juneau. It's an airplane flight to Anchorage. So let's see if I can find out where they are.